Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Z-Biotics. I just got a call from a friend and client the other day who asked me if they should invest $17,000 into a Tudor, if down the road this might be upwardly mobile in value. So I'll answer that question towards the end of this episode, but I want to answer a much larger question, which is really, are Tudor watches collectible? What can we look at from history, both, of real past vintage watches and now modern examples of Tudor limited pieces? Do they represent, or are they part of a collector's class? When and where? Why as well as big, right? So I think that the first and most important thing we should talk about is what makes a watch investment worthy? What makes a watch, desirable? Should we even look at watches as investments? Today's going to be a great episode, so let's get in. Let's start off with this. Define terms, right? What does it mean to be an investment? What is an investment watch? Should watches be investments? Well, let's start off here. And I know that people have some very strong opinions about this, and people get a little bit uppity about this. And I'll give you what I think is the simplest and most obvious answer. Watches absolutely can be investments. Watches absolutely can appreciate and do very often in value. That appreciation can often be very predictable. Many people, both wealthy and otherwise, diversify their assets into collectible watches from those big brands that I've just mentioned and do predictably very well. Very similar to art and very similar to collectible cars. So watches, yes, can be investments. Should they be? Do I recommend you look at watches as investments? Different question. If you can control yourself, then yes, they're just fine. Do I think that they should make up a significant portion of your assets and portfolio? I would probably say no, but I don't manage people's portfolios. That's not my living. I'm a watch analyst, right? So it's probably not my place to give that answer, but I would lean on the side of no, and for a couple of reasons. One, because watches, unlike stocks, are a pain in the butt to sell, right? You can sell a great watch at any point if you have no problem taking a bath and paying a dealer a big premium for that service. An investment that you stand to make, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 on, $20,000 on shouldn't be a tremendous pain in the butt to sell. And B, there's such a temptation to keep them, even when you're in the black, right? Watches, unlike stocks, it's very easy to develop a very deep and emotional connection with them. So all those gains end up on paper and never realized. I see that all too often. It happens with me. I've done it 1,000 times, right? You buy it because the watch is going up in value, but then you fall in love with it and it works so great in the collection and it works so great in certain settings and you end up keeping it. That's life. I do it all the time. So watches do absolutely appreciate. They do it all the time. They also depreciate all the time, like anything, but they are rather difficult assets to manage and liquidate out of, right? Because of that emotional connection. So now getting into Tudor. You have to separate between vintage and modern. Now, we'll start off with modern because there are a couple of new modern Tudors that I think are interesting. One, the biggest deal at the moment is the Black Bay chronograph in pink. Interesting watch. We'll start off with a little bit of the story about it. The watch seems to have been released to appease two separate brand partners. Jay Chou, who's a Taiwanese musician, and David Beckham, who is a co-owner of the Inter Miami soccer team. And their colors are pink. So Jay Chou is a lover of pink, and certainly in the East. And David Beckham represents pink every day with Inter Miami, and their jerseys are pink. So there's kind of this East-West, kind of purpose, this dual functionality of this pink Tudor chronograph that I think is interesting and smart. I think that Tudor, picked a good color because it seems to be very truthful and native to two very different brand ambassadors. So it was kind of a wise release. Now, what do I think about the value of these watches? Well, from their original price of $56.75, they shot up to $15,000 to $18,000 in value. So the first question is, well, do I think that they will stay there? Do I think this watch is worth $15,000 to $18,000? Number one, no. I don't think this watch represents value at $18,000. I think it represents value at $5,600. It's a great chronograph from a great brand. It's reliable. Tudor's done a great job with it. If Tudor thought it was worth $18,000, they would have originally retailed it for $18,000. The rest of it is just pure speculation, and really often dealers just driving up the price of something because they stand so much to gain, right? If you own 3 or 4 units of these and you stand to make $10,000 or $12,000 per unit, That's fantastic. And dealers every day get relationships with authorized dealers and try to get backdoor watches, and then they throw a couple of $1,000 back. So I think that it's really just kind of a messed up kind of way to do business. It's not something that I've ever done. I have no interest in that aspect of the market. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at ZBiotics, the geniuses behind my favorite pre-alcohol probiotic. They're actually the maker of the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, been engineered by a team of PhD microbiologists. It's a probiotic drink that breaks down the byproduct of alcohol, which is responsible for the rough mornings after drinking. So here's how you use it. First, before you have a drink, have a ZBiotics. For the best result, make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Number 2, of course, drink responsibly as always. Pace yourself, hydrate, have some food. That's just always a good measure. Number 3, enjoy a better tomorrow. Enjoy a more energetic tomorrow. Enjoy a tomorrow that doesn't have all of the burden of last night, not in the same way. I lean on ZBiotics every week. Everyone here on this channel knows I love my alcoholic beverages, but I hate that idea of that messy Saturday morning, that messy Sunday morning. And because ZBiotics breaks down that toxic byproduct of alcohol that happens in your gut, you just don't have it the same way. I mean, I just feel so much better on those mornings that otherwise I wouldn't feel so hot. I couldn't possibly recommend ZBiotics enough, especially this time of year. Summer is in full swing and nobody wants to waste the next day or have less fun the night before. So head on over to zbiotics.com/Theo and Harris or scan the QR code on the screen right now and get 15% off of your first order. Again, when you use the code Theo and Harris at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription, which I have, by using my code, so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you are unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. So remember, head on over to zbiotics.com/Theo and Harris. That's zbiotics.com/Theo and Harris and get 15% off of your order. And again, I highly recommend the subscription because you'll need it. Thank you. ZBiotics. Do I think that long-term they'll be able to hold their value? No. I think that we should point to the Tudor Harrods collection to look at really, as history. Right? When Tudor released their Black Bay with Harrods, it was a $3,500, $4,000, whatever watch that immediately shot up to $9,000 to $11,000 in the secondary market. And everyone went nuts, right? And now you go on Chrono 24, they're readily available at $3,500. So they lost all that appreciation and went right back to their base, back to their bottom, right? Back to exactly where they started. Now, if you got a Tudor Harrods from retail and you loved it because it represented Tudor's collaboration with a British retailer, and maybe you're on vacation in England and it was like kind of special, or maybe you're British and that matters, or whatever the heck, it doesn't really matter. If for whatever reason you just love the collab, then you still love the watch and that's great. But if you bought that watch at $9,000, $10,000, $11,000 as an investment or as a clout piece, it's faded, right? People have lost interest, right, in it as a collectible. I think the same thing is destined to happen with this pink piece. I think the same thing will happen. These watches will slip from $18,000 down to $14,000, down to $11,000, down to $7,000, down to probably somewhere around $7,000. That's probably where it'll land, $5,600 to $7,000. Well, why? Well, people get bored. The it thing, generally speaking, fades very quickly. And B, I just don't think it's a very pretty watch. And that's subjective, sure. But I do think that opinion is probably held by a significant portion of people. I would say that most people are not interested buyers for this watch, regardless of being qualified. Most people probably look at this watch and go, not for me. Not a good sign when it comes to collectible items. Because the whole idea, the way that you rise in value and stay there is when there are more interested and qualified buyers than there are pieces. But we don't really know how many were released. And certainly the attention will fade, and then we're really just left with the watch itself. We're not left with the hype. We're left with, do all these people actually like and want to keep this watch? Are people still looking for this watch 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road? And I think the answer will be no. I think that by that time, there will be 4 or 5 new and cool Tudors people love, be it from F1 or be it wherever, that I think that will steal the spotlight, and the same thing will happen. And I think that's pretty much where Tudor will continue to be. Tudor makes fantastic watches. I love the brand, their construction quality, their design. So many of their watches from their regular catalog that aren't limited are fantastic. From the Black Bay 925 in silver, which I think is a fantastic watch, to all of the Black Bay, ladies in 31 up to 36 are fantastic. Two-tone, rhodium dial, blue dial. Tudor does such a good job, such a great job manufacturing watches that are approachable, gettable, watches that are beautiful, that you don't even really need to look at the hard to get stuff. At Rolex, everything's hard to get. You can't get anything, basically, so it's a different conversation. But at Tudor, you can walk into a boutique and choose from any number of beautiful, widely appealing watches. So there's no reason really to, obsess over, I think, these more limited, rare for now, desirable for now, hot for now pieces from a brand who doesn't really do that. That's not their gig. Tudor's gig is not creating hype watches. That's Rolex now. Right? Tudor's gig is something different. It's actually creating, their goal is basically to create the greatest sports watches, basically, you can possibly get under $10,000 and do it between 4 and 6, right? That's their gig. So their gig isn't hype. And no matter how many times you change the color or how many collabs you do, I don't think that those hype pieces will last. They can last and appeal to you on an individual level, but last to you as a collector's item? I don't think so. The reason I'm making this video is because someone just asked me this question the other day, and they were considering spending $16,000, $17,000 on this watch, strictly as a collectible. And I said, no, I think this is a bad collectible. I think this is a stupid watch to buy if you're buying it for that reason, unlike, let's say, any number of rare Rolexes. Like if you're going to buy an odd Rolex Daytona, let's say a white gold blue dial at let's say $40,000. And the question is, do you think this is upwardly mobile? I would say, well, I don't think it's going to make you a fortune, but it might be an okay investment. I don't think you'll lose money if it's in good condition, and you'll be able to wear it the whole time. So, you can kind of lead a little bit with value retention. Here, I don't think so. To pay $16,000 or $17,000 for this watch, you need to be comfortable with, I think, losing a large portion of that money. Now, quickly, Tudor as a collectible item as a brand, the vintage end, no brainer. Tudor, the Tudor of yesteryear, just as good as Tudor of today in so many ways. On a very functional, the technology was different, of course, available at the time, sure. But so much of those watches, it represents the same idea, right? The same core ethos. Just durable, reliable, beautiful, affordable Rolexes, right? And for many years, they were underappreciated. And still till today, they're understudied, relatively speaking. So many people are not aware of the value that Tudor still represents. So as people educate themselves in the vintage market, you will continue to see appreciation. With more people educating themselves, you will have more qualified and interested buyers. And with vintage, fewer and fewer watches by the year of great quality, because people will wear them and people will beat them up, people will lose them, and all these things happen, right? But there are so many little details to differentiate these watches. So there's so much more reliable. Now, less of a braggy thing, right? Showing up in a vintage Tudor a lot of the time isn't going to get you like the same clout as the pink chrono, sure, in certain circles, but on a long-term value end, they're far, far better. And they will continue to appreciate, sometimes slowly, sometimes more quickly. I love the brand, as all of you know. I'm a big Tudor fan, period. But I wanted to address this question, and I'm glad that I did. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. If you want more content from Theo and Harris, subscribe to The Zero, our private podcast community, and I will see you all very soon.